Welcome to Human Design Variables. We are going to be working with awakening, the keys to enlightenment, if it's right for you to move on in this level of the knowledge, because it is quite an advanced area of the knowledge, and it offers you an in-depth look at what makes you unique or different, your cognitive design, your cognitive innate intelligence. And so we have clear practical maps for anyone to pick up when it's right for you to pick up and get some touchstones into understanding yourself or comprehending why you are so different from everyone else. Ross says there's no greater revolution in this knowledge than the understanding beyond inner authority that there is such a thing as leftness and rightness when it comes to the brain and mind system and how it operates. It's the most important knowledge we have for the transformation of consciousness. So we're looking at very deep levels of your genetic makeup. If you are not operating in alignment, meaning able to follow your decision-making strategy, this might be a place that can help you be a little bit more aware. Remember, everything is about awareness. It's not about trying to change or fix or mentally manipulate anything in order to be enlightened. Adyashanti has this great audio book called Falling into Grace. I really quite enjoy that sensation of being completely in allowance of whatever is. And so as I guide you through an orientation to the introduction to the human design variables, when you're operating correctly, you have the potential to live out the possibility of your full cognitive difference or your uniqueness. This is the science of differentiation after all. So your type, as far as its signpost of spirit, that would be success for the projector, peace for the manifester, satisfaction for the generator, and surprise for our reflector friends. Then when you're accurately aligned, all of this stuff will work perfectly and you'll get to see it. That's the neat thing about Ra's promise to you. My name is Laveena Archers. I'm a differentiation degree practitioner and a holistic analyst, variable teacher, and human design analyst teacher. You can find me at laveenajovianarchive.com, the source of the human design system. So as you're participating in this webinar, if you do have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box or the live stream. And if I don't get to it during your time with me live, then I'll do my best to go back to see what questions you have and answer it at the end of this session. So let's talk about the 16 orientations of awareness and awakening. First thing we want to talk about is what is cognition? It's the natural intelligence, it's the innate intelligence that is your birthright. It is no guarantee that you'll be able to operate from such an internally exalted place. And when you put it like that, it can sound kind of like, oh, how do I get there? But it's actually quite a natural thing. Funnily enough, a lot of people who come into this go, oh yeah, that's what that is, or that's what that is, or that's what that is. So everybody's going to have their own process. And this is not about comparing or measuring yourself against some arbitrary measuring stick. This is the Maya mechanics, the mechanics of the illusion that we live in, this differentiation of what we are here to be and to live and to do, or to be aware of, or to process, or to experience, or to experiment with. All of us have our innate individual truth. And so what I'm going to orient you to is helping you to understand this 16 different maps or orientations, okay? Orientations, 16, this magic square. So the first thing that we're going to look at is to see that there is a word that may be new to some of you, cognition, which refers to the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and senses. So you'll notice on that map that we had 4 different colors: orange, blue, green, and yellow. So what cognition is unique to the individual being because there's 4 different arrows and they can point in 2 different ways. That means we have 16 different possibilities and 4 different groupings. We're going to start with the basis of understanding for the groupings. The first one is orange. So if you look down at your body graph and you see that you have these arrows that are pointed in these directions, you can see that how we have you grouped on the map is in the orange group. And this means that you are mentally focused and observed in your environment. The bottom two arrows are the environment that you're in. So being focused and observed is quite interesting. I happen to be in this group. Focused and observed in that we're engaged with the environment and very particularly focused and designed to be seen. So when you look down at your body graph and you see that, oh, focused and observed, you too, okay, then you're living a similar life. Not exactly the same, of course, but a similar life to someone else who is in the orange group. That's quite nice to know about. It's nice in that you recognize your difference. So this can be one of those reasons why people go, well, I'm supposed to be a projector, and yet I have lots of energy. Well, maybe you're an energy projector and you're in this group because you're mentally focused and observed. That means you're engaged, actively engaged with the environment, and the environment, it stimulates you. Now, it's going to stimulate you differently depending on what else is going on in your body graph, but that's a good first step to kind of get a grasp of, okay? So the environment, it's about your connection to the environment or what is external to you. If we go over to the blue group, you can see that we've now shifted into focused observer in the environment, which is quite different. Instead of those bottom two arrows pointing to the left, now they're pointing at each other. And that means the body is being an observer while the mind is incredibly focused. And focused is an attunement, these attunements to very specific things. So when you're in the blue group, your environment should be more passive or relaxed as far as your contact with the external. So in your invariability, how fun. My mind is playing with words in there. Invariably, your variability is going to show up different, but within the blue group, this group is going to be mentally focused on specific things, and that can allow the mind to be freed to do whatever it is that it's going to do based on you and your process with the environment, while the body is more in a relaxed environmental construct, what you're attuned to within the environment. So green is, these are people who are going to be more peripherally, so instead of focused very specifically, more peripherally aware. My husband is one of these. It's kind of like he has eyes in the back of his head. This process of being observed in the environment is linking the environmental busyness, but you see the arrows pointing opposite to the one we just saw before. While the observed process of the body is doing its thing, the mind is free to take in a very wide view. So in that respect, it's completely, it's similar, but also different than that blue one we just had. So it's similar, but very different in that they're exactly opposite of each other. Okay, opposite of each other. Now, the last grouping that we have is the peripheral and observer in the environment, meaning the relaxedness of the environment, the kickback, the no stress. Being an observer means that you're more able to, and peripheral, more able to see things that maybe other people aren't necessarily aware of because they're so heavily focused on something specific while they're active with something. So what you can do with this knowledge, these yellow people, or anyone really, is watch yourself as you experiment with your human design, with your type, strategy, and authority. Watch yourself as you become the witness to what is happening. And these are our orientations of awareness or awakeness to what is happening or what we are experiencing as our little individual slice of the totality or individuated aspect of the greater whole. Now, that might seem like a little overwhelming if you're new to human design. So if you're new to human design, this is going right over your head, maybe not the right time, because you do want to experiment with strategy and authority before you get to this level of the knowledge. Although a lot of people are really interested and fascinated by this level of the knowledge, and sometimes they've appropriated it and made up words. This is the source information to experiment with. So where are you going to get more information? Well, in a little bit, I'll show you where in your options for getting more information about these binaries that become a quadruple kind of orientation or recognition of how you're here to be different, then subdivided into 16. You know how in human design, we have 4 basic human types or aura types. We can subdivide each of those aura types into 16 categories of orientation. And so those 4 possible combinations, you're looking at the process of the sun, earth on the conscious personality side, the top right arrow, and the design sun, earth, or the unconscious top left arrow. And then we have the nodes, which we just went over, that you can see group us to our variable environmental compatibility, we might say. Now, not to say that you're going to try and find somebody just like you. It's quite interesting to be with other people too, but just to see how the structure or the framing of one's connective field with the environment, what you're going to resonate to is what we just looked at, or how you're going to interpret mentally, and also your brain-body system is the next thing that we're going to go into. So these 4 different possibilities of leftness or rightness subdivided, everything divided into 16, is one of those things that can help you feel better about maybe why you are somebody who can just read books over and over again, or somebody who really needs to focus and ask questions in class. And there's nothing wrong. All of it is perfect, unique, and special. But what happens is, because in our homogenized world, most people orient towards reinforcing the strategic and rewarding it. That's the 90,000 years of our development as a human species was oriented towards the quad left. And what's happening now is that we're shifting over into a new kind of human being, a mutation in 2027, where the background frequency field is shifting, and the body graph is changing, and the new rights will be born. Right now, we have quad rights as well. They're deeply oriented towards the future. That isn't quite fully here yet. All of us are living in a body that is transitional. So after this new cycle that is awakening within the human species, what we'll find is that we'll have new orientations to what it means to be alive and to be human, because we will have a full spirit mutation, spirit consciousness, spirit development in the human species. Okay, so these are tools for transformation when we're looking at variable orientation. First, we're wanting to mitigate or resolve some of the conditioning challenges, the adaptive conditioned strategies that the mind uses to try and control or manipulate the life, which ends up in distortion. And then what we want to do is enhance our cognitive difference so that we can find our purpose. And this is why you would probably want to study your variable. Variable is to awareness, what type is to form. This tool for transformation is the thing that's going to help you self-recognize or self-realize or be aware and be in the acceptance of self, which is all awakeness is the unconditional love of self and the ability to accept what is self. And even to the observation, sometimes humorous recognition of what the not self is, and just taking it all as it is. This knowledge can truly make a difference in your life, not only to your human design experiment, but also to your learning, your development, your work, your studies, your parenting, anything that you happen to do in this day and age has a lot to do with the development of your consciousness, your awareness. So your life experience can be enriched, and a lot of keys can open up. These keys can open up doors of awareness for you if you just sit back and relax and watch and wait to see what happens as you continue to decondition and align. So as a nine-centered being, you are the one who is uniquely designed to be aware as yourself. No one else can plant their awareness inside of you. We can point fingers at truth, but we can't tell you exactly what it's going to be like for you. No one can. All of us have our own individual, innate, personal authority. And so our ability to be specifically differentiated according to our human design is how we can align. And in that alignment, everything works perfectly. You don't have to figure everything out mentally. Your intelligence expresses itself in a very, my mind said wacky, wonderful, weird, maybe for me, but for everybody. My husband likes to say, if you were to take somebody and put them in another person's mind for a day, it would drive you crazy. We're all used to our own mind and how it works, but everybody is so different. Where we have homogenization, or the white areas in the design, or the tendency to reward all strategic goal orientations, is a place of learning and wisdom when we let go of holding ourselves to impossible standards, which is anything that anyone else out there tells you that you should be, do, say, think, aspire to. So I like to think as a variable as a way that our superpowers in your design, like your unique role of how you're here to be you, your life force in the design. I like to think of variables as a way of how these things shine uniquely or differently when we're operating correctly. So cognitive intelligence or potential, again, cognition is the key term here. So orienting ourselves towards understanding this doesn't have to get super technical. For those of you who are studying, you might find that I use a few words here or there that you need to go and look up. If you need any more information on this kind of stuff, just type under the Human Design System YouTube channel variable under the search bar, and you'll find more videos that can walk you through all of this information, like understanding your body versus your mind versus what is spirit, the connection between body and mind, the process of finding one's own truth. So when you're not operating in alignment, you have dysfunction. You have the distortion and the pain and suffering of the miasma of the not self, or the shadows, distractions, things that are distortions to what you came here to do. So when you let go of the dysfunction, which means bitterness, anger, resentment, frustration, and disappointment no longer rule why you're making a decision, because those are false strategies. False strategies that don't allow the true you to shine. Because anytime you're making a decision from the avoidance of frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment, that is not coming from the authentic place, because the frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment is a signpost that you're off track. So if you were course correcting out on the open sea, we're out on the open sea, we're navigating by the stars, and we're looking up at that star, and we fall asleep at the wheel, we wake up and we go, oh God, where's our star? The star, our own personal North Star, our decision-making process, is success, satisfaction, peace, and surprise as far as the signposts of being off track. So if there was a signpost up there of, okay, this is the way, and it tells you this is the way to go, wouldn't you want to follow that North Star? Success, satisfaction, peace, surprise, the signpost of the spirit of abundance arising from within. Rather than, my mind gave me a picture of hell that way, frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment. When you make decisions from that or in the avoidance of that, it just generates, manifests, projects more of the same. Okay, so that's a really big differentiating key to understanding how you're here to be unique and yourself. Because dysfunction, operating from frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment, is bad for business. It's bad for your life, bad as in, I used bad for business because my mind is quite fond of, is it alliterations, the term where the letter starts, the same letter starts another word? What to do? Anyway, the radical transformation clinics are here to help you dive below the surface. You can think of them like living your design, but at a deeper level. So when we surrender more deeply to the form, because the surrender is mind-based, you have to surrender your mind telling you what to do, thinking that what you know is true rather than touching into the lived expression of truth that is within. This knowledge, when you couple this with strategy and authority, in fact, in one of his lectures, Ra would not differentiate or take the deeper layers away from someone who is right brain body system. Hi, me too. Right brain body system. Anybody else right brain body system? The cognitive intelligence goes along with the authoritative process. They are not separate things. And so everybody having a unique cognitive difference, either pointed left or right, is going to show up uniquely in combination with all of the different processes of authorities that we have. So when we couple this with strategy and authority, this meaning the 4 variable arrows, the radical transformations, what in turn happens when we experiment with it is that we have a comprehensive set of tools, tips, tricks, techniques for overcoming what is, in most cases, decades upon decades upon decades of conditioned adaptive strategies or homogenization that you've picked up along the way through food, through well-meaning parents, through all of the classes and courses and schools that you've attended. Because we are conditioned, it's very easy to be conditioned. You're sitting here and we're constantly being conditioned. The transits bombarding us with conditioning. So because we are conditioned to be what we are not, it is not good nor bad, nor right nor wrong, it simply is. And what that conditioning can do when we let go of our mind running the show, when we can see the conditioning for what it is, now it becomes something that we can be aware of. Oh, that's not me. Okay. So it's not uncommon to discover that we're attempting to act strategically. You learn something in human design. Oh, this means that. So then I'll do that, X, Y, and Z. And that's a challenge. This is a very mindy system. And if you only use the mind, you're going to get stuck continuing to use the mind. At some point, you might find that the light breaks through and that the body starts to be allowed to be its unique, differentiated, weird, wacky self. And instead of strategically aligning, particularly if you're right-facing variable arrows, what we naturally do is that our definition, if we have such definition, comes alive in that we can recognize it instead of taking it for granted. We can self-realize it. We can watch it express even the unconscious stuff. After some years, we can get a sense, or I know it's my experience anyway, I can feel when my design is on as far as this body and the vehicle and the form principle dominating, because when you decondition and align, the form dominates. The form, the body is the life. So instead of acting strategically in that area where we're naturally designed to function receptively, over time, things shift, and now you are more receptive to the nature of your form principle. Instead of all that stress and strain and pain and suffering, particularly any of you with right-facing variable arrows, instead of that, we can surrender, allow the body to do its thing, and relax. Passive, relax, kick back, not so much stress, letting go of those nervous system dysfunctions, the brain and the body. And instead of the mind making us crazy with looping thought patterns of why, or trying to figure out the future, trying to make sense of the past, instead of that divorcing us from our true potential, because the moment that you believe the mind's story implicitly and intrinsically and all the time, it's always and musts and shoulds and never and all of that. If we can allow the body to live its life, now we find that we have access to our true potential. And our true potential is going to be unique, differentiated. When we have the dysfunction or distortion of the mind-body-spirit complex not being in alignment, we have catastrophe across the board, your well-being, your longevity, your chemistry, your happiness, your efficiency, your effectiveness, perspective, motivation, and also, of course, everything boils down to what's the bottom line here. I'm not just talking about finances. I'm talking about your quality of life. So instead of trying to resolve the problem from the place where it was created, the mind is the challenge. It's not your friend in the beginning of the human design experiment. I've had reports from many different students at different stages along their first 7 years of the deconditioning journey, where all of a sudden, because they have been studying with me, this tends to be my path, is purpose fulfilled through mind and its learning. Because they're studying with me, now they can see and get wise to the mind's machination of the Maya. Maya simply means to measure. Mind measures. And so when you're using your mind to make decisions, it's always lying to you because it's always focusing on this thing. I prefer this over that. And it's reactive. It is not creative. So when we come to this place where we surrender the mind's process to look outward, to be outer authority, not inner authority, and we surrender that, the mind, thank you, mind, good job, no more this mindy stuff, making decisions. If we allow ourselves to come from form principle, what happens is a shift in the, my mind said variability, the frequency of the being. And the being has a better process as far as a higher quality of life, a higher resonance, a higher process, higher as in higher attunement to selfhood. Not that lower is bad, lower teaches us, but at some point it's time to put away childish temper tantrums or shutting one's ears and not allowing oneself to open up to differentiated awareness, which can show up in many different ways. Everybody's unique and different. So that's one of the things that you study when you go into this area of the knowledge. So to mitigate conditioning, type, strategy, authority, and our radical transformation so that we can enhance our cognitive difference. So these variables come from underneath the gate, line, color, its tone. And tone is where we can find the orientations towards either leftness or rightness, if you want to know the mechanics of such. Again, more videos on YouTube if you want to go deeper into that. Or any of the official source knowledges, Jovian Archive, that has provided the licensing for the International Human Design School to certify people in this knowledge if it's right for you to also teach like I am. So we're talking about the alignment of purpose. If it is right for you to align to your form principle and also help others too, as I am, to see the other in service of their differentiation is one of the first steps. To know the other as an aspect of the totality, just as you are. is one of those things that is quite a blissful experience indeed. So when we have that freedom of understanding that this grand Maya, this play, is an illusion, and that we come to the conclusion of knowing self for self and knowing other for not self, and yet still a mirror held up so that we can each learn in this grand dance of Maya and the process of awakening to individuated truth. Truth is individual. Everyone's purpose is utterly unique. That's why there's no comparison and no competition when it comes to being able to be in service of or support of or empowerment of others, because only certain people are you here for. We're not here for everyone. We all have our fractal as far as our connective field. So why learn this? It was the most fascinating thing. I remember writing to many different teachers in the beginning. I knew I wanted to learn this. So I wrote everybody I could in my distraction phase, seeing who's up, who's down, who's winning, who's losing, who's doing what, and wanting to make sure that I found the source. And that's why I now represent Laveena at jovianarchive.com, being able to have the capability of passing on the message of Ra, of course, in my own way. So when we look at the correctness of our awareness, are variable, truly. The variable addresses what strategy and authority cannot. Strategy and authority doesn't address variability in our cognitive difference. The correctness in terms of the realm of mind and awareness is what variable teaches. So if we're attuning to our own individuated selfhood, which is a multiplicity of experiences and awarenesses unwrapped or unraveled over time, this awareness that we can now have with this knowledge can guide in aligning the mind to its natural intelligence, the natural awakening, again, falling into grace. This, rather than attempting to align with avoiding the not self, as in, I'm frustrated, I'm going to go do this, or I'm bitter, I'm going to go do that. Those things are things that it's time to drop. If you're 7 years in this experiment, you might have already done so. If you're still at the beginning, you're probably still ruled by it. So this alignment of awareness makes it possible for us to have a deeper harmony within the form, this undercurrent or ocean of compassion and grace, this greater peace of mind, because when a body is not coming from that state of agitation, frustration, nervousness, anxiety, bitterness, disappointment, what happens is the quality of the mind is different. And that mind that can see clearly or cleanly, aware, correct awareness, operates at quite a different frequency than a mind that is all out of sorts, stressed, anxious, confused, and all of those transformative potentials. Because if you are this, frustrated, angry, bitter, disappointed, what a vast difference it is when you get to the end of your 7-year cycle and you're like, wow, got a new lease on life. You emerge, Ra's promise, quite literally, a new being. And so differentiation is filled this potential awareness. It's fulfilled in 2 ways. You either have a body that's different or a mind that is different, meaning there are going to be differentiated diseases that you have that nobody else is going to be able to figure out. And so what does that leave you with? The self-reliance on you being your own authority. And disclaimer, I do not have a medical degree. Please do be your own authority in deciding what to do with your body or what is true with your mind. So let us go into a little bit more as far as the unique type of awarenesses that we have. Those 4, again, auric frequencies that can be subcategorized into 16 different variables. And each of us having our strategy for unlocking or orienting towards the fullest expression and experience of you being your sovereign, your own authority, this basis for our unique individuation. When we look at this variable calculation, the evolution of our consciousness is what you're looking at. So awareness is a physical practice. It's a process. Are you going to live out your life on autopilot, simply obeying the mind and trusting its black and white thinking, it's good, bad, right, wrong? Are you going to break free from the chains that have subjected you to their dominance, their meaning the world out there? Not that they have it out for you specifically. It's just that most of the Maya is dominated and controlled, homogenized by the program. No one can escape it. But what we can do is poke our head through the sky and be aware once in a while and come from a place of authenticity, that falling into grace, that awakeness, that brings forth the light of truth from within the heart and spirit and soul of you. So this physical practice of mechanical truth is one of the things that I love investigating, studying, researching, facilitating with others, to watch them be aware and to transform. It's one of the things that I love doing. Okay, so this is Laveena's chart for Maya Mechanics Imaging. I do recommend that you either use MyBodyGraph or MayaMechanics.com. Okay, those are both the softwares. MyBodyGraph.com is for newcomers, people who don't have any professional analysis or study. MayaMechanics.com is for the professional. All right. So when we look at the body, we're talking about brain-body system now. You're either going to be left-brained or you're going to be right-brained. So every single aspect of what it is to be form principle or experiments of consciousness in truth informed by this Maya, living in this illusion. We can't escape it. It's because of this differentiated possibility that is inherent within the nature of our brain-body system, first being either active or passive. Those are two very different, polar opposite, different kinds of brain-body systems. So this differentiation that is possible through the human design system can be achieved first. You've got to deal with the body. Okay, the body comes first. Imagine if you got into a car accident and you got some frontal lobe damage. Well, obviously, there's going to be an effect on the quality of your consciousness. Same thing too, when you've spent your first 7 years of your life not being treated correctly. So let's imagine we're in a third world country where there's not enough access to clean water nor food. The people that are going to, children that are going to be most horribly affected are those children that need more food, the left brain body. They use more energy than the passive, which is a mutation that came out of the left. Passive doesn't need as much food. These are the people that eat like a bird, and we still manage to carry a little bit of fluid retention, we'll say, or a softer form than the left, which is more active. Remember, active brain-body system. So first we deal with the body, because if we don't deal with the body, nothing happens. So that's why mechanical strategy, type, strategy, and authority gives us a mechanical stopping point from the mind running the show. And when we can understand that the brain is going to be active, steam coming out of the ears, or passive, no stress, no pressure on the brain. It can help us to allow the being to be as they are, as in not to force or push them to be anything other than what they already are. So passive means relaxed. Active means there's some tension there. Now let's go a little bit deeper into the left brain. Again, the left brain has a higher energy consumption. So some kind of caloric intake or nourishment, if you're not doing that, then hot liquid. Hot liquid stimulates the brain to be able to wake up So don't skip meals. If you're going to have anything, at least some hot liquid in order to get some nourishment up and some energy up to the brain. You have a busy brain, and your tension in the body is going to be creative or productive. You have a lower water retention, and your brain is more oriented to locking things away, categorizing them, sectioning them off. Your brain is actually more of a focused kind of creature with a survival discrimination and its need for higher stimulation levels. That's very different than somebody who is right, which is very sensitive to outer world stimulation. So these left brain people are people who have smell or taste or outer vision as part of their cognitive difference, how they're here to be unique. What's interesting and engaging at the deeper levels is how vastly different this shows up depending on the person's authority. Because again, remember, we're looking at something that is a cognitive difference for the brain-body system. Here with the right brain, exactly polar opposite from a left brain, now we have a mutation that operates out of a lower energy consumption. So not being hungry till noon, not an uncommon thing. Don't really eat meals first thing in the morning. It's okay to skip meals because you don't require as much fuel. Your brain is not processing things in the same way. So we have a higher water retention for people who are passive. There is no necessarily engine steam coming out of the ears while we're passively taking things in. It's the itness of being. And it's about the experience and lower stimulation, meaning more sensitivity. So now we're talking about people who are focused more, not to say focused, cross-contamination of keynotes, are more available to their brain, is more sensitized and sensitive to inner vision, feeling, and touch, how things touch them on a very fundamentally deep and sensitized level. And there's so much more we could go into, but for now, that's a good orientation to the beginning of a brain-body system that is designed to be unique. Remember, these 4 arrows of leftness and rightness correspond to the components of one's variable. So now let's go look at the mind and the motivation system. Again, we can either have leftness or rightness, and this can be strategic or it can be receptive. Strategic is going to be left, receptive is going to be right. So the personality awareness, because what we are is a connective field with the global conditioning and the consciousness field data stream that is penetrating all of us all the time. Or I would call them neutrino beam streams that come from the stars and go through the planets and into us. We are perpetually and continually bathing in this neutrino ocean, this cosmic soup that connects us all. So how is that mind here to be unique or different in relationship not only to its selfhood, its brain-body system, but also when it comes to its interpretation of the Maya, the mass of the Maya, yeah, or the very specific areas of Maya that it's equipped to deal with. So rooted in a correct outer authority is how this process of mind motivation system works. Correct outer authority is our unique, differentiated perspective or experience or process or awareness given to another without an agenda, a mental agenda of trying to get something from someone that is not a function of what we really came here for. So your mind is best, all of us it's like this. Your mind is best as an outer authority for others because it can never be inner authority. The internal mind is too polluted with the outside world, the contamination of the Maya, the miasma of the Maya, the madness of the normal mind. So if we can allow ourselves to allow the mind its freedom to either be strategic or receptive, its appropriate place of however it is designed to be cognitively functioning. Then we see, instead of being locked into the pain and suffering, because the mind and its suffering brings more of the reasons why one might be suffering and why one should suffer and why one needs to suffer and why one deserves to suffer, and on that play goes. When you rise to that game, you can take a deep breath, maybe harder, may need to take 2. You might need to cry a bit and take 3 or more, talk with a friend. But at some point, the dust settles. And our unique awareness, is that awareness designed to be strategic, left, or is it here to be receptive, right? You'll notice that when the brain-body system is properly enhanced, and we'll say enhancement being not only its cognitive difference, but also its nourishment of the right foods, its ability to have the right amount of rest and time alone and time to be engaged. It's balance. We'll say the body's balance. What happens is, once that body is balanced and coming from an authentic place, now the mind can be free to be in its being strategic or its being of receptivity. So let's start with the strategic side, the strategization process. When you come into the human design experiment and you allow yourself to decondition and align, as if it's a choice, when you are blessed and fortunate, there is no luck. It is all Maya. Okay. So when you are on the fractal, we'll say, meaning it's your serendipity to be in this place and time of experimentation with the substance of what it is, the true truth of this inherent being. What you may find is that as you decondition and align and allow the body to run the show, the mind is liberated from choice. But the strategic mind tends to take advantage of its strategic processes, and it's much harder for it to let go because, and especially true if there's some repeating patterns over on the body side, because it's under the thrall, the spell, the illusion of it being in control, when it is simply a byproduct of the brain. It is not in charge of the brain. So the goal of a strategic mind being, if this is you, hi, me too, is to be liberated from choice in order to see. Because when we have our strategic, not self or adaptive condition strategies, blinders on, what happens is we will only be attuned to those things that we are expecting or thinking that we should or have to or must see, rather than being allowed to strategize or discriminate by focusing. You are here to remember very specific things. I can hear Ra's voice when people ask me questions, and I know that this is one of the things that makes me different. I will specifically lock into something that needs to be expressed as part of the outer authority of being somebody who is a studier of the system. We don't store additional information. It's not necessary. There are only very specific things that we're here to strategize or to pull from our own memory. There's always going to be an agenda or goal. And when that goal is focused on being liberated from choice and being an outer authority, now we're cooking. We can communicate our outer authority themes for survival that the other quadrants are going to need. So in order to learn, we must trust that our mind's strategic focus, and that we can go and review what we've missed if it's necessary. If it's like, okay, there's enough of these questions, give me a moment, let me go check my notes, or maybe go ask that so-and-so over there. They're really specialized in that. That's not my wheelhouse. That capability of being able to tap in or to tune into that swell of energy and awareness that is here to be an outer authority for another. Very different, okay? So that we can see. And in this seeing, it's logic, it's purpose, it's human-driven. It's in order to see, in order to protect or look out for or prevent or be on guard. Strategic is more oriented towards the primary influences of our survival, innate intelligence, food, how we make our way through the world, how we compete on the mental plane, how we take advantage of the interpretation of what's happening, our sensory keys that are very much about the intuitive or instinctual or awareness, the storage of formulas when it's connected to the right things. It will remember those right things so that the interpretation is based on their memory of what they've taken in, what we've taken in, locked onto, and allowed to bubble up to the surface as an awareness where we can sell strategic awareness to others. So these bits and pieces, not necessarily a stored holistic whole, a narrowing down of one's awareness in order to see. The mind can get quite obsessed with trying to control life with this kind of mind. So it is more of a challenge in some respects to let go of the mind strategies focusing on yourself. But if you can get your mind out of your own trip and instead focus it on where it's supposed to be through decision-making strategy, being your own authority, you'll see how things transform for you. And then you'll strategize on those things that bring success, satisfaction, peace, and surprise, rather than the recurring nightmare of reinforcing the frustration, anger, bitterness, and disappointment. When I was a kid, I can remember having a real tough upbringing. I know a lot of us in our generation did. And I remember being suicidal ideation, running away from home, and the mind obsessing with, I'm just going to kill myself. That'll show them, you know, that kind of really distorted view of life. Because this design has a wide split and would always blame the experience, you know, on the parents. It took me a long time to let go of the pain of what I thought was my parents' fault for my upbringing. So when we let go of those childlike thought processes, I'm not good enough, nobody loves me, so I might as well kill myself, and that'll show them, you know, the ridiculousness of the mind in its adaptive condition strategies. Now I'm talking, let me see if I can remember, houses, 17 different houses from the time I was 11 until I was 17, 18. I must have been in maybe 9th grade. So, you know, no parents at home, broken family. When it comes to healing the wounding, the tiny child within that might still suffer if we continue to live the martyr game. I'm someone who people betray. I'm someone who is not good enough. I am someone who's the adaptive condition strategies. I am, therefore, I manifest more of the interpretation of a situation as such that gets me more of the negation of self, and the disappointment, the frustration, the anger, the bitterness continues to ensue. So I'm not saying that your mind is the bad guy. We can make it something that is fruitful and rich for our experiential development of awareness. What tends to happen when one believes the mind show, the story, is that we just keep reoccurring or reinforcing and re-attracting more of those situations into us in order for us to evolve through that and make a different, have a different experience of that same or similar kind of wounding, that perceived self lack or flaw when there isn't anything. There's just learning and experience and discovery and process. So let's talk about process, the exactly polar opposite mind, the receptive mind, the being. This receptivity means that you are just like a sponge. You're taking in all kinds of data, just paying attention, just being present, in other words, allows you to take in everything like a sponge. Not that you're specifically processing as you're taking in, you're just receiving data like a download. And so what will happen is people are here to use you as a well, and they'll ask you or they'll engage with you, they'll process with you, and all of a sudden something comes out of you, pouring out of you, potentially. You express information that you don't consciously know that you know or how you know. Your primary health system supports the correct storage of what you take in. And in that intelligence, it is about the milieu or the others that are around you that draw from your well. So you are, as Rob would say, only as smart as the smartest person in the room. Notice what other people pull from you. Those are your invitation, responding, initiating theme, awareness themes. So when you surrender to being used by others who dip into your well, as long as it's aligned for you, of course, to learn, you just pay attention, you just be present. You're allowing yourself to be more relaxed of a mind, not trying to figure it out and strategize as to why necessarily, but just being surrendered, being receptive. This receptivity, the mind that you have, is a way of being of value in the engagement with the other, where it's drawn out of you, however it is designed for you to be pulled upon or drawn upon. Experiential, this is not the experiment of the logic side, the left side, the strategic side. This is the sensory phenomena of experience. So instead of your mind trying to interfere with the thought process by trying to act on things, it's more like the ruminations of things, the ability to digest with the other, the processing of taking somebody in very, very deeply. So what happens is if you're trying to be strategic or force your mind to struggle to focus or whatever the case may be, however it shows up for you, you can lose your ability to absorb all the full spectra of the necessary information that you are here to take in. It's not about acting on your thoughts. It's about receiving life. And so you're more receptive, attuned to, or connected to the emotional and experiential feeling basis of life mentally. Your non-conceptualized, meaning non-processed data stream, source material, the doorway to the future that is right, that is coming. So you're the perfect person, there we go, to have a conversation with or to mull things over because you have the capacity to operate without reason or agenda. Because you're not strategically trying to do something specific with it. It's just like the creativity of the space between the notes of music, the attunement to being surrendered. It's your game if you are receptive in the mind. So that's body and mind. The next place that we're going to go is digestion and awareness. All right. Digestion is a way of interpreting life, the food that you take into your body, the people, the information, the things. On the design side, the sun, earth, at the physical level, our variable describes whether, as we have seen, the brain is designed to be active or passive. Active brains, again, very busy, more food, more energy levels. It might not necessarily be food. The heat of the liquid that one takes in, along with the nutrients that one extracts from that nourishment, is going to be exactly perfect for you, depending on what you are built like or here for. So having that strategic mental activity on the conscious side depends upon however it is that you're nourishing your brain. And we can have all different kinds of combinations of brain-body system with mind in context with the environment. So when you're looking at a body graph, I want you to see this up here as the great I am, as in not necessarily the voice 20 that says I am, but the awareness principle of a body that is in this form, embodiment in this life. And that is a function of our life's work or our life's process. So in order to have the cognitive difference, one must be aligned to how one is here to interpret life. And that's cognition. So cognition is this wonderful spiral, evolutionary spiral, where no one person is better than an other. It's simply different. So in honoring the nourishment of one's form, or if you're a parent like me, to help facilitate the growth of our little ones in such a way that their cognitive difference is also nourished, can be quite a rewarding experience. Now, environment is something different. You see, now we have, instead of the I am principle, you have the environmental path, the sensitization to the path that we're walking in this life, where we are relative to what we are attuned to or whom we are attuned to, as well as the differentiated perspective or the way in which we are designed to see as we walk along that path with those people. And this is the we. So think of it like an external expression of I. Just like no human can step in the same river twice, because a river is constantly moving and we are constantly changing. The cosmic soup, the developmental process, nodes are developmental, the developmental or karmic process that we are here to be engaged with, where we, as the I principle, can fulfill the life's work. That's what nodes are. And that's what the environment is, as well as our perspective along that path. So it's something to think about, how very different we are. If we go back to what the I am principle is, the core essence of the awareness principle, the sun, the sun on either side, okay, that creates 70% of the neutrino imprint when we were genetically imprinted by that field. However, the stellar background frequency outside of our solar system, that's where the we comes from. It's a very ancient, you could call it lineage or karmic, it can be comical, comic potential, karmic potential fulfillment of purpose. And that you can find more on in advanced analysis and studies. Okay, so nodes develop the true potential. They provide the framework. So the environmental process is really only important at the age of 30. And if you're below 30, or if you're a parent raising a young child, if the vehicle, the body, is having some kind of illness or challenge. So that's something really important to know about, that this is your longevity. It's your connective field to the greater whole, the cosmic unity. And we're all walking on a path. What's your little slice of the fractal path that you're here to walk with? Okay. And how are you here to see along that path? The awareness potential that can be developed really intrinsically depends upon the form. Because if the form is not operating in alignment, what happens is everything's off, perpetually screwed. Yeah, your seeing is always askewed. So in attunement to the body being the life and the form principle dominating, and the frequency field of one's cohesiveness being vibrating at a higher or a more coherence is a good word, coherent frequency, now one can be attuned to right action. And I'm not talking about mores. Everyone has their own moralistic system. I'm talking about for this body and this moment and this experience in the expression of what it is that you're experiencing. So right action means form principle, the mind has surrendered to. And so these nodes of awakeness, because they are part of the variable principle, they are going to have two different ways that they are going to show up, either observed and focused, or observer and peripheral, or however the combination might be present in your natal design. Okay, that was just a little brief touch point in there. So 4 arrows, 16 different combinations, your key to self-realization, or your awareness, your enlightenment, lightening the load of the pain and suffering. One of our most popular products for as long as I've been working with Jovian, since 2014, are the variable lectures, where Ra had groups of individuals come in according to their variable, and he explained it to each of them. Okay, so there are 51 minutes approximately, each of the 16 different variable workshops. You can purchase that on jovianarchive.com. And when you're ready for more beyond the master's recording, I have two options for you. If you're truly ready to transform and you want to go deeper into the process, Emerge is a 1-year container of support. And if it's a little too much right now, either time-wise or money-wise, for this professional guidance and implementation advice, then the next thing that you can do to begin is to study. In order to master, it is the path of all projectors to do so. Study the other through a system. So you would be helping me facilitate my own studies by continuing to support either the channel or my practice if it's right for you to engage with me. The first stop is radical transformations, of which this was a lead into. So I have transformed the way that I'm doing radical transformations. And if you're interested or you want to be engaged with it, simply reach out. The deeper level of that, if you've already taken radical transformations, would be to go on to Emerge. And Emerge is a deeper layer of radical transformations where we're going into the variable grid from the perspective of the magic squares. So really more attuned for analysts, people who are very much studiers of the system, but not necessarily on the professional level. If you want to go to the professional level, the differentiation degree and holistic analyst program I'm a graduate of, as well as the variable teacher training, that gives me license to do radical transformations in group. And as time moves on, I'm finding that it's quite engaging to have different levels of awareness and awakeness within the group that is nourishing to both my process as well as the process of the people who are engaging. The materials are available. When you're ready to sign up, just reach out to me and we can get that to you. Okay. So if you want self-study materials, jovianarchive.com. If you want facilitation with somebody who knows what they're doing and has been practicing with this for some years, I warmly invite you to reach out if it's right for you. And that is the benefit of this knowledge and working with this knowledge, is to be able to walk this path with others who have come before. Not that there is good, bad, or better, just that we've had a little bit more experience along this path. And in the process of the development of the mastery that is part of this trajectory, to find the process with an other, because that is what Maya is. The moment I am myself all alone, I am not who I am for you. So in engaging with me, I become something else too, in order to facilitate the success. So we welcome you to our human design community. You can find us at humandesign.live, humandesignlifecoaching.com if you want professional training, and also the humandesignsystem.com. Those are my 3 platforms. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Until next time we meet, namaste.